Hello everyone, hope that your MBA applications are progressing well. And if you feel that they aren't and you feel anxious, I just want to assure you that you're probably giving yourself much less credit than you deserve and you're actually doing really well. So just keep your chin up and keep going at it. Now, for some of you or many of you that are watching this channel and hoping for and trying for a career in management, at some point after you finish the MBA, there may come a time when you feel like you haven't grown at all, despite completing the MBA and slogging away at your management jobs for years. And it can lead to low self esteem, self hatred, and even depression. I wanted to talk to you all about this because one, it's a problem that I faced and continue to face, and two, for many of you, it can mean years of being unnecessarily unhappy and dissatisfied with your career even after you do the MBA. The problem that I've identified is with the way that we view an MBA itself. It's marketed as this degree that arms you with the necessary hard and soft skills to tackle a highly demanding management career. And to some extent, this is true. But what the marketing doesn't tell you is that how you perform after the MBA is very dependent on what sort of skills and competencies you bring into the MBA itself. Not really a mind blowing revelation, I understand that. But you have to understand that for most of your life, from kindergarten to 12th, you're just a student like every other student in your class. All your batchmates and yourself, you have similar backgrounds and experiences. But an MBA class is very different. It's pulled from so many different industries, age segments, job titles, career levels, and geographies. And you know what's crazy? In a normal course of life, you might never ever meet with these people or interact with their circles at all. Yet somehow you're all studying the same coursework and all of you want to become consultants, product managers, program managers, and founders. All of you. MBA colleges and MBA students love this diversity. They purposely select diverse people to form a batch. And I'm pretty sure that many of you who are applying are writing down diversity as one of the main reasons that you want to come to ISB itself. And I'm all for diversity. But you do need to understand that diversity changes once the program begins, right? Because all of you from different backgrounds are living together, eating together, attending the same classes, working with the same professors, working on the same assignments, creating memories, laughing and crying together. So slowly you begin to take all of these differences for granted, all of this diversity for granted. Anything that reminds you of how different you are ceases to exist. You've just left your career, you left your job titles, your families, cities, countries, all of that to come for this 1 or 2 years into this bubble so that you can study together and improve together and become MBA graduates. You form a new identity for yourself. Let's say you're Arjun. You're not Arjun the engineer anymore. You're Arjun the ISBN or IMEN. A new identity, on the other hand, carries with it new perceptions and new expectations. Before ISB, Arjun saw nothing in his future other than being an industrial engineer or a process analyst. But now he wants to be a consultant or product manager because that's what most of his batchmates want to do, right? There's this real syndrome called Fomo or fear of missing out, and Arjun is experiencing this a lot. He believes that the best way for him to ensure his future is to go with the crowd, to go with the crowd, to go with the herd of sheep. So Arjun prepares really hard for consulting placements. He does case study groups, he does all sorts of preparation for the interviews. And then Arjun finally attends placement, and the interview panel asks a pretty easy case because they also just want people who meet the minimum requirements. They want to train these people up into consultants. So Arjun has half a brain, he answers the questions easily, meets the minimum requirements, and gets hired. Arjun's friend Rahul is also hired into the same team at the same firm. So both of them go out for drinks later, they celebrate, and they look forward to working together and advancing together in their career. But 6 months later, Arjun is sitting on the bench, no project, struggling to get any sort of work that he can. But Rahul has already done 2 projects and he has a third project lined up. And there's a rumor that Rahul is going to be promoted during the next appraisal cycle. What happened? Why is Arjun struggling and why is Rahul thriving? Well, maybe it has something to do with the fact that Rahul was a data analyst for 3 years before he even came to the MBA, and he picked up the skills needed to be a successful consultant way back then. Rahul and Arjun were both hired by the firm for meeting the minimum requirement. But Rahul definitely has skills and competencies which give him a leg up over Arjun, and Arjun has to work twice or thrice as hard just to catch up to Rahul. In the heady rush of doing the MBA, in the heady rush of forming an identity as an MBA, Arjun forgot that what you bring into the MBA actually determines how you perform after it. Rahul and Arjun aren't MBA batchmates anymore. They're employees who are vying against each other for a promotion. And that reality hits Arjun like a truck. He starts to question his ability as an MBA graduate, an ability as a consultant. He goes into that deep, dark place that I talked about before. Arjun has basically failed to manage his expectations out of his own career. And this is when Arjun's mind plays two kinds of tricks with him. And the first trick is playing a game of catch up. Arjun's mind tells him that if he needs to become a good consultant, he needs to tackle 10, 15, or 20 different skill areas at the same time. He has to dress well, speak well, network every day, improve his Excel skills, improve his analysis skills, improve his presentations, blah, 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 blah. And he has to do it right now because he needs to catch up with Rahul, because he needs to get that promotion the same time as Rahul. But all he ends up doing is trying to do everything, biting off more than he can chew, and then silently having a mental breakdown in the company toilet after 2 weeks of trying. The second trick that his mind plays on him is something I call the Moscow game. And by Moscow, I mean must have, should have, could have, would have. Arjun looks back at every single decision he's made in his life until this point in time and curses himself out for every single bad choice that he has made. He could have done this, should have done that, would have done this if things had been different. He must have done something else. He should have taken computer science instead of mechanical. He could have done coding classes on campus instead of partying. He should have just locked himself up in his room for a month after graduating from ISB and just hacked away at his keyboard trying to learn data analysis before joining the consulting firm. If only he had known. But what Arjun instead ends up doing is creating this big ball of regret that just threatens to tear through his chest. And that's a great tragedy. This all sounds really negative and depressing, especially coming from a guy that releases MBA admissions advice on YouTube. But it's a sad reality for many of us that have completed an MBA. And I think it's really good to talk about this and gather the tools and perspectives needed to handle it rather than cover it up or not talk about it. And I assure you there are ways to manage these feelings while steadily gaining confidence and growing as a person and an adult rather than just growing in your career. But it involves sitting with these uncomfortable feelings and dealing with them. It involves years of practicing small habits without being able to see results immediately. And that's going to be the toughest part. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that my first piece of advice is to acknowledge the reality of your feelings. I know it can feel shameful and unjustified that after spending so much time and money, you're not able to handle the basic workload of an entry-level MBA job. So what do? Instead of trying to acknowledge this, instead of trying to analyze it, you choose to suppress or distract yourself from that reality. Feeling sad, drink. Feeling lonely, party. Feeling inadequate, try to make travel plans or daydream. Do anything except sit and understand the root cause of these feelings. You start to believe that maybe you're supposed to suffer during the week so that you can release all of that suffering in this drunken binge or party during the weekend. I mean, jokes, memes, social media and comedians seem to support this, seem to say this is normal. So maybe it's true. But I believe that it's the ultimate form of surrender. It's the ultimate ineffective tool because I have done it too. I've experienced it too and it hasn't helped me at all. It's just a way of saying, I don't know how to deal with this. I can't deal with this, so I won't deal with this. Instead, I will suffer because they're paying me lakhs and lakhs of rupees to suffer like this. And that's what an MBA means. I believe that a more helpful and pragmatic approach to this might be to just simply reserve some free time, free of distractions, free of any work, where you just simply sit quietly and reflect on what you feel. If you have a practice of meditating, do that. Or just take a piece of paper or a diary or a journal and just scribble out a few lines about what you feel and why you might be feeling that way. It could be as simple as just writing a single sentence. Boss told me my presentation skills are shit and it made me feel bad. I feel like a failure. Or I'm jealous that my teammate Rahul used a simple Excel formula to solve a problem that I was breaking my head about the entire week. If you really want to, grab a pillow, hug it, cry, scream, doesn't matter. Just don't let those feelings linger in your system by just distracting yourself. Because these emotions, the problem is they tend to build up for a very long time. And without even noticing, maybe 2 years down the line, you're suffering from a full-on nervous breakdown. Now, self-reflection is a very important skill. And at least when you're starting to acknowledge it, self-reflection might feel a little forced, a little boring, a little artificial, but it's really important. It's the single most important skill for your life. Just like running or hitting the gym, it's a skill that you must stick with, that you must perform consistently for a long time, that you must suffer through for a long time before you finally enjoy it as an act and also begin to see benefits for yourself. The second piece of advice that I want to give you is that when given a choice between personal growth and ambition, choose personal growth. A little confusing because as an MBA, you're supposed to have ambition, and ambition should lead to growth. That's the kind of narrative that you've got in your head because you spend tons of money and time to get here. So if you're not ambitious, then something is wrong with you. I actually argue the opposite. I think ambition that is not grounded in reality is a recipe for failure. It's an obstacle to growth. For example, if you've only studied mechanical engineering and worked in mechanical engineering and you suddenly have an MBA degree and this burning desire to become a great management consultant, this burning ambition, you'll quickly find that you're almost at level 0 in a new field where other people have an advantage over you. And this can lead to issues such as low self-esteem and low respect for yourself because you're looking at it backwards, right? Rather than looking at it as, hey, I'm starting at level 0, but I'm learning every day. I'm learning something new every day and it's really exciting. You tell yourself, I don't have the same skills as all these other people, so maybe something's off with me. I suck at this job. And that saps all the motivation to get better at the job. So you're going to lead to this vicious cycle of feeling really bad about yourself, and because you feel really bad about yourself, you're not learning enough to feel better about yourself. Instead, I feel that a great strategy is that you aim to be better at one thing first. Instead of trying to tackle 10 or 15 different pieces of feedback or comments from somebody, try to just take one thing and try to see how you can improve that. If you're bad at Excel, maybe you just take up an Excel course and try to do a little bit of improvement or a little bit of programming on Excel every single day for 1 hour. And then you track that improvement over a month and see how better you've gotten at it. Maybe because you've not tackled the other areas that you're deficient at, maybe because you've not devoted enough time to all of these other improvement areas, you don't get to keep your job. Maybe they fire you because you're not good at all the other things. But you have to understand that you've at least tried to improve yourself along one thing and probably improved it. And the next job, you're going to be better at Excel and you're going to have more mind space to tackle all the other areas that you haven't tackled in your previous job. Imagine if the opposite had happened. If you had tried to tackle 10 different things, failed, and still lost your job, how much more demotivated would you have felt then? The third piece of advice that I want to give you is that you should pick up a habit. It could be anything, it could be small, it doesn't need to be a hobby or passion as people call it. Just pick up a habit that's productive but is also completely unrelated to your career. It's a bad misconception we have that the remedy to feeling overwhelmed at work is to not work at all. I think that's a really bad advice and a really bad idea because humans are meaning-making machines. What I mean to say is that in every little thing we do, we want to see a purpose and a meaning. So even though ideally spending your time, just whiling away your time, having free time is very important for your mind to de-stress, it has a place and time on its own. You can't just alternate between sucking at work and then coming and spending your time idly, because then you're not seeing any growth, any meaning, or any value production at all. You can drink, you can smoke, you can party, you can eat out, you can socialize, but none of those really add value or show you visible growth. My suggestion is that you take up one activity where you consistently invest effort week on week and you can actually see growth. Myself, I love gardening. I planted some flowers and money plants on my balcony nearly a year ago. And no matter what happened in my life, no matter what ups and downs, I continued to water these plants and I continued to feed them day by day, week by week. And today, these plants cover the entire balcony grill, creating this beautiful canopy of vines. And my mom and dad and I just love to go there and spend some family time together and just enjoy the wind and the greenery. So this little thing that I did, this little habit, this little passion that I picked up and invested my time in has now reaped rewards and results. I also do other things. I've taken up a coding class because I really hated coding. That's precisely why I took mechanical engineering. And it was a big fear for me for a long part of my life. But today, without coding, you can't even be a mechanical engineer. That's the level of automation and coding expectation there is from candidates in any field at all. So I picked up a Python course and I've consistently hacked away at it until I'm a decent Python coder today. I can, handle data sets easily. I can derive insights easily using it. I can even create small automations. And that's a massive improvement for somebody who had an allergy to coding, right? What I'm trying to say is that even when my career goes really bad, I have these little passions and habits that I've developed, these little investments I've made to fall back on, to feel that even if things are not going really great in my career, I have other areas in which I can add value and see growth as a human being. And that can make all the difference on a bad day, right? It can make that difference in terms of removing you from a downward spiral and pushing you towards an upward spiral in terms of positivity. The fourth piece of advice is I ask you, I beg you to seek help with mental health very early. One of the big themes that I've seen these days in college campuses and in advertising is something called an awareness campaign. You would have heard about AIDS awareness, breast cancer awareness, ALS ice bucket challenge, whatever. Awareness is important. It means more people start to care about an issue or at least get to know about its existence. The problem starts when awareness doesn't turn into action. Today, we're all aware of mental health as being important, but we pay very little attention to it when things seem to be going well. And when things go bad, we end up wanting immediate solutions from the therapist in one single session. When that doesn't happen, we give up on maintaining our mental health completely. And that's a terrible strategy because mental health is very much like all the other habits. It can take months and years for you to see any sort of tangible reward from it. Many institutions already provide mental health resources. For example, ISB has campus counselors. It even has student clubs that are dedicated to getting you in touch with the right mental health resources. Big companies like Amazon and Deloitte are providing counseling and in-house psychologists. But I find that most of these resources are hardly utilized because, for one thing, when things are going good, employees, just completely disregard their mental health. When things are going bad, they suddenly all want to find an immediate solution for it. Therapy is like vehicle maintenance, essentially. You need to do it regularly to keep your car from falling apart. So do yourself a favor and just sign up for regular counseling appointments. Even if you don't feel unhappy or depressed, it doesn't matter. Just treat it as regular maintenance. Because therapists can ask you questions that reveal emotions that you might not even be aware that you're feeling. And therapists keep your information confidential. They allow you to work on things without the risk of other people finding out or potentially embarrassing yourself. So there's no question of your secrets releasing or leaking out. Just become used to the fact that mental health and therapy are just like physical health. You need to go in for your regular checkups. You need to be aware of what's going on with your mind as much as with what's going on in your body. And you need to seek the right medicine to correct any problems that might be cropping up. The very last piece of advice that I want to give you is to tune out and unsubscribe from junk media. Today we have too much information flowing into our eyes and ears, right? Like there's a screen and speakers everywhere we turn. In fact, you're probably listening and watching me on YouTube as of this moment, maybe on your phone, maybe on your laptop, whatever. The problem is that the internet today favors short form content. Everything is 60 seconds or 30 seconds or 20 seconds. Nothing is ever long form, nothing is ever deep and detailed. So what happens is that you start with one YouTube short, it gets over in 60 seconds and then the next one pops up. You hardly have any time to examine the piece of information, reflect on what it's talking about, see whether it's applicable to you. You don't even know whether it's true or false because your mind is now jumping into the next reel. So what your mind has done is that it has registered the very first impression, the very first sensational impression that the headline or the sounds and sights in the YouTube short made. And I see this kind of short form junk being repeated on professional platforms like LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn influencers and popular founders will post some sort of generic shit advice and they'll receive thousands of reactions and comments. And you're sitting there listening to a founder tell you that unless you work 13 hours a day, you won't be as successful as them, that you won't earn as much money as them, that you won't make as much impact as them. First of all, in that little post they made, in that little set of hashtags they put up, do you know they work 13 hours a day? And even if they did, do you know what they worked on for 13 hours that made them successful? Do they tell you who else helped build the company along with them? What kind of interactions they had? What kind of resources and credit they had access to? No. You only remember the headline. And your only takeaway, the only impression it makes in your mind is, if you don't put 13 hours of work every single day, regardless of what work it is, you are going to be a failure. And that's such a stupid way to view your career and your life. So what I suggest is that you stop taking mental health or life advice or guidance from any spiritual guru or founder or business magnate on LinkedIn. or individuals of any kind for that matter, right? Instead, spend your time on long form content like podcasts and articles which are written by researchers who actually study the topics of neuroscience, job satisfaction, and personal growth. Because they scientifically test their hypothesis using multiple subjects and their results are verifiable compared to one single founder or CEO, sharing their 2-minute information snippet regarding their experience on an interview or a podcast or a YouTube video. In fact, I've provided links to some of the channels that I love listening to on YouTube in the video description. So feel free to take a look and let me know what you think of it. Let me know if you have any resources that you think I should listen to. Just drop a comment. Now, I want to close this video by repeating the disclaimer that I made in the beginning, which is if you do one or more of these things or even all of these things, you're not going to see an immediate change. It might take months or even years of kind of working through the pain, working through the inadequacy, working through the depression or the feeling of weakness, right? And that's okay. That's how life is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a constant work in progress. So what you need to do is to view your life as this personal project to grow yourself, right? Don't view your life as this series of milestones in terms of family life or personal life or relationships or career that you need to tick off, right? It's not a box ticking exercise from birth to death. If you've done that, I suggest that you get out of that cycle right now. Because if you follow these habits, if you consistently practice living a good life and practice these habits, you will get to a better version of yourself that feels more confident and comfortable in your own skin. And there can be no career goal that's as important as just feeling comfortable being the best version of yourself.